America is back to work. Today, we learned that in January, our economy created 467,000 jobs. But that's not all. We learned that job growth in November and December over last year was revised up by more than 700,000 jobs. On top of that, 400,000 jobs on top of the 400,000 that were previously reported. This morning's report caps off my first year as president. And over that period, our economy created 6.6 million jobs.
Hello everybody, this is the most important stimulus check information that I want you to know. Continue watching this video because you don't want to miss out on this. So for months now, inflation registered its highest levels in the last 40 years. Several states approved the sending of stimulus checks or tax refunds to the residents. And according to the Labor Department Consumer Price Index report, although the year-on-year inflation rate fell from 7 to 8 in November, several entities continue to send money in December and will continue to do so next year. But everybody, the good news is that states will continue sending inflation relief checks next year. Right now in the state of South Carolina, taxpayers who file their tax returns only have to wait a couple more days before they receive a rebate of up to $800. The rebate will be paid to recipients in the same bank accounts in which people received their 2021 refund. Recipients who have filed their tax forms by October can expect this payment before New Year's. And according to the Department of State Revenue, recipients whose tax liabilities are less than $800 will have their rebate value equal to the tax liability. For people whose tax liability is $800 or more, they will receive an exactly $800 due to the limit. But Carolina residents, South Carolina, still have time to file their returns and get this payment because the deadline has been set for February 15th of next year. Anybody who files now, after missing the initial October deadline, will receive a rebate in March. Residents in Massachusetts have also until January 16th to apply for a universal basic income program. The program aims to provide aid ranging from $200 to $400 for those struggling with food insecurity in Massachusetts. Additionally, this universal basic income will help with rising cost energy this week. And now the program has already provided thousands of households with funds from November 2020 and August 2021. Households of 1 will get a $200 card. Households of 2 will get a $300 card. And those with 3 or more will get $400. In New York State, the legislators voted unanimously to approve a one-time $200 stimulus payment for senior citizens who qualified for the enhanced school tax relief program. This is for seniors, and they can expect to receive their checks by the end of the year. Because now, many economists have discussed that the state of the U.S. economy is recently going bad. The goal of the program is to help senior citizens that recover financially from the crisis and ease the burden of the economic downturn. The program, financed through the country's fund balance, is estimated to cost $5.5 million. Stagflation is a condition in which slow economic growth, rising prices, and rising unemployment will all happen at the same time. Although it is rare for slow economic growth and high inflation to coexist, it has happened in the past, and many believe it could happen again. Stagflation has already occurred twice in the United States, once between 1974 and 1975, and again between 1978 and 1982. All of this happened during a period known as Great Inflation. When stagflation is present, workers have make less money, but have to pay more for things that they buy. Investors see lower returns due to slow growth, and the lower stagflation continues. The more it impacts the future value of their investments. The key to how stagflation work is found in the 3 economic forces that make it up. That's stagnation, high inflation, and high unemployment. So, this policy has created higher inflation, but failed to resolve the employment problem. Economists are now urging that policymakers take the anti-flag stagflationary steps to try to reduce the economy's dependence on oil and other such things. Hopefully, Joe Biden can do something about this and send out stimulus checks because we all know it's very much necessary.
For wrap up, and thank you again for filling in for me.
Absolutely, Chair Murray, and thanks to the witnesses. This has been a really good hearing. I want to stick right where Senator Rosen was at the end of her questioning about workforce issues, and particularly workforce in helping folks with substance use disorders. My experience has been, and I wonder if this is more than anecdotal, is that some very effective folks in this workforce are people who've had substance use disorders themselves. But I also find as I travel around Virginia and talk to people that and how legit this is or whether it's a perception, they still feel like if they've had a substance use disorder, particularly if that's led to any criminal conviction, that they can be challenged in licensure, and regulations often get in their way in terms of being able to be in the workforce. They can volunteer, they can be part of a support group, but if they want to make it a profession and help others because with using the experience that they've gone through, there can be barriers in their way. So I wonder if you might talk about that, because if we are looking for a bigger workforce, we wouldn't want to keep out of the workforce people who've had a life experience that would make them particularly effective.
I'm happy to comment on that. I mean, we have absolutely seen that individuals in recovery, so peer support specialists, recovery support specialists, make a meaningful difference in terms of connecting people to care and giving people hope. Often we find recovery coaches share their own stories of lived experience and often are able to help connect people to services and supports. In fact, we've seen with our state opioid response grant, many states now have programs where they have recovery coaches connecting with emergency departments. So when an individual is brought to an emergency department, they're linked up with a recovery coach, and then the recovery coach helps with system navigation, helps them get connected to care, or helps them with whatever they need. Often they say their first question is, how can I help you in your recovery today? So those programs make a difference. We've seen recovery coaches also in working in methadone programs, working in supported employment programs, and it's an area in terms of SAMHSA that's a priority for us in terms of expanding our recovery work, and we recently announced a recovery Office of Recovery. Recovery is also one of the pillars of the HHS overdose prevention strategy as well.
I would just add,
please,
if
Ms. Johnson.
They were going to move manufacturing jobs from Syracuse, its hometown, to Singapore and China. It was infuriating. It was devastating. It has stuck with me for 20 years. But I knew then what I know now. This community is innovative, it is tough, it is resilient. And if we could just level the playing fields, Syracuse could go toe-to-toe, not just with Silicon Valley and Austin and Boston, but with Shanghai and Beijing in being a global hub for innovation and manufacturing. That's exactly what the CHIPS and Science Bill was all about, giving upstate New York and places around it, all around the country, a rebirth in tech economy. That's why almost 3 years ago, I proposed a, quote, moonshot to invest in cutting-edge tech, like semiconductors, so we could outcompete China. That became my Endless Frontier Act. And then I spent the last 3 years working to pass it into law, ultimately manifesting itself in the CHIPS and Science Act. And I want to thank my colleague, but this was a bipartisan bill, Todd Young of Indiana, for his partnership in getting this done. It was bipartisan. And each of us had a vision that we wanted new places to benefit from high-end manufacturing and research.
Biden has also extended the crisis-related payment pause several times. And the administration's approach to canceling student debt fails to satisfy many other Democrats, including Chuck Schumer, who has been calling on President Biden to cancel up to $50,000 for each $43 million borrower of student loans. Folks, there's a ton of good news about the fourth stimulus check and Social Security benefits that you have to know. $200 stimulus relief checks have actually been passed to help many Americans across the country. Congress has approved $4 billion for a fourth stimulus package. And with gas prices setting everyday record highs, a group of lawmakers in many states want to give